Hi everyone, my name is Elsa and today I want to do a video about my 10 favorite books of all time. So, first of all, I have 3 honorable mentions. So that's 3 books that I absolutely adored, but that for those series I only read the first book, and so I don't want to put them in my favorites of all time shelf as of right now. I want to finish the series first. So those 3 books are, the first one is Guards Guards by Terry Pratchett. The second one is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. And the third one is Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. So like I said, I love all 3 of those books, but I only read the first book, so I'm gonna do a review about them when I actually finish the series. But as of right now, they're only honorable mentions in my top 10 favorite books of all times. So let's dive right in. My 10th book on this list is the Nevernight Chronicles series by Kristoff. So the story is about a girl, Mia, that was like around 7 when her entire family was murdered by the council. Because the entire series takes place in a fantasy world with Roman Empire vibe, and the council is like in the Roman Empire, the leader of the entire empire. So he's like the most powerful man in the world, and so even though the only thing she wants is to have revenge, she just can't get it because he's like too powerful. She can't even get to him. So she decides when she's around 16 to join one of the most powerful assassin schools, and she goes there, and that's where the story really picks up, and I won't tell you anything more about it. So just know the first volume is she's in that school and we follow her in that school, and it's like amazing, like really amazing, like the teachers, the course, what happens, everything incredible. And the rest of the series you really don't see it coming. Like I was really taken by surprise by this series and the plot, and that's something I really liked in this book because I loved where it got and how it got there. So really highly recommend it. I also love this book because I absolutely adore the main character, Mia, because she's a badass character, but I saw many badass characters that I didn't like because they were always kind of the same, strong woman, warrior, really smart, but they weren't deeper than that. It just stopped there. They were warriors and then period. And what I love about Mia is that she's a real badass, very active, always doing stuff, and like you're always following her. She's always in it deep. She's just amazing. But she's a very flawed character in the sense that she's obsessed by her revenge, and it's not good for her, and you see how it affects her life and everyone around her. And I just loved how the main character grows throughout the entire series, and just amazing. But the main reason I absolutely adore this series is the narrator. So the narrator, oh, my big crush. I love him so much. So the narrator is like so funny, so freaking funny. And the book isn't funny in itself, absolutely not. It's not funny at all what happens in it. But the way the narrator just sees and tells us stuff is like, oh my god, so freaking funny. And he's so sarcastic and just so lovable. And there's in this book there are footnotes, a lot of footnotes, and you just can't get enough of them. Like the footnotes were actually the most amazing part of the book. When I saw any one of them, I was like, footnotes, and I just couldn't wait to go and read it, because the narrator is like soft, sometimes not so soft, but really relatively soft in the book because he's focused on telling the story. But in the footnotes, just let's go. And you love him so much for that. So amazing footnotes. And amazing narrator. I fell in love with him. You will too, I'm sure of it. And that's it for this series that I highly recommend. Then we have the Deltora quest. So I have book 2 right here. So Deltora Crest is a middle grade that I read when I was around maybe 13. So I'm not so sure I would love it as much if I read it today. But when I read it, I absolutely adored it. So I do highly recommend it, especially if you're in middle grade. But I do think from what I recollect from the story that it will be like really enjoyable for someone that enjoys middle grade but that can be way older. So the story is actually starts like something really classic. It's the story is set in a fantasy world with different species, you know, elves, gnomes, dwarves, etc. And a long time ago, a dark lord came and invaded the country, and all the different species allied with a human as their leader, and all the species offered one magical stone to the human. I forgot his name, that's why I say the human, I'm so sorry. So they all offered one stone, and the 7 stones were set in a belt that he wore around his waist, and with the power of the 7 magical stones, he defeated the Dark Lord. And like maybe 1,000 years later, the Dark Lord returns, and he this time snatches the belt and all the magical stones in it and spreads them throughout the country because he can't destroy them. And they're all they were all put in the most terrible and awful places in the entire world, and they're looked after by a guardian, a really terrifying and awful guardian. So that's the story. And the story, no, the story isn't that. The story is that the king that was on the throne when the Dark Lord returned had an adopted brother that himself had a son, and that's the son, Lev, is the main character. And so he goes on a journey with an older man that I forgot his name. It was a long time ago, but he was amazing. And on the way, they will encounter like a kind of savage girl, and she will join the team, and the 3 of them will, in each book, go and retrieve one of the stones. And it sounds like really, you know, flat, maybe boring. It is not. It's really not. First, because you love the characters, you love their relationship in the group, the 3 of them. The world is absolutely amazing, but the main thing is a big part of the books are about mysteries, because with each book you discover things. You know, you're like at each book you have like things you don't understand, you don't know, and you, as in a mystery novel, you try as a reader to understand what is going on and what happened, and you get these little hints, and you just have to put them together, and you have to see if you can figure it out before the main characters. And so there's this part of, you know, always thinking, always trying to solve the mysteries. That's really amazing. You also have a big part of the mysteries are things, I don't know if you can see it, it's in French, but the principle is that you have a lot of this in the books, like drawings that are in themselves hints and clues, and also like mysteries you have to solve right away, like puzzles and stuff, and they're popping up in every book, and that's just amazing. Like, I was crazy about them when I read this series. And so that's it for me about this series. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is Alanna by Tamora Pierce. So Alanna is also a middle grade that I read when I was around 12 or 13, that I also adored. And like for Deltora Quests, I'm not sure I would love them just as much if I read them now, but I'm pretty sure I would. So the story is just great. You're gonna fall in love with it instantly. The story is set in a pretty classical fantasy world, and the main character, her name is Alanna, and she's the daughter of a duke or something. So I can't remember his title exactly, but someone in the nobility. And she has a twin brother, and they're like perfectly identical. And he wants to become a monk, and she wants to become a knight. But it's like really a medieval kind of setting, and so obviously women can't be knights. The father one day decides to send Alanna to a convent and her brother to the capital to become a knight. and she has an amazing idea. It's to switch places. And so she rewrites the letter she was supposed to give when arriving to the convent, and instead she says that her brother is coming to become a monk, because like the convent, there's a part for girls and the part for boys that want to become monks, so it's perfect. And she instead cuts her hair and pretends to be a boy and goes to the capital pretending then to be her brother, and starts training as a knight. And the story is just amazing for many reasons. The first one being that you just adore the main character. She's amazing. Like, I can't remember exactly why she's amazing, but she was amazing when I read about her. But mainly because she's so fierce, and I also love how the book tackles different subjects, like her periods, because there's like a lot of real problems and obstacles she has to overcome to become a knight, because she's not as powerful physically as men. At one point, her breast starts to grow, and so she just has to find ways to hide it. She also has her periods, like I said, and she never had anyone to like tell her about it, so she doesn't even know what's happening to her. And there's like a lot of those great scenes where the author really thought about what it would be for a woman pretending to be a boy in this universe, and the result is just amazing. There's also a wonderful, like so beautiful love story, one of my favorites of all time, so highly recommend it. Then we have Harry Potter. So I'm not sure I have to talk about this book because everyone knows about it, everyone knows the story, knows the characters, knows everything about this series, and I think almost everyone read it. If you haven't read it, I just have one maybe story to share with you. I actually read it when I was around maybe 22, so really late compared to everybody else. And why is that? I don't know. Maybe I just didn't want to do it because everyone was doing it, you know, something like that. I don't know. Or I think it's because also I had seen the movies and I really liked the first ones, but the later ones, I saw them really far apart and I wasn't that into it, and so it didn't push me to read the books. And just one day, with my sister, something took over us and we decided to do a marathon, Harry Potter marathon. So we watched all the movies in like 2 days and we completely fell in love with this series. And when I actually fell in love with it, I decided to give the books a go, and I just adore them. And thankfully, I think I'm grateful that I watched the movies first, because I really enjoyed the movies and I still enjoy them because I watched them first. But the books are so much better. You know, there's like no comparison possible, especially after book 4, because like half of the book disappeared in the movie. It's so sad. I got why they did that, but it's so sad anyway. So if you only watch the movies like I did, I do recommend you just give it a go, because they're amazing and there's a reason everyone's talking about them and loves them. So that's my story with Harry Potter. Then we have Illuminae. So the Illuminae files, I have it right here. So there you have it. And I adore this book. It's a trilogy, and what's so great about it is the format. Like, I'm gonna show you in an instant, but the main things, it's a sci-fi book, but really you don't have to like sci-fi to read this book, because it's quite universal and easy to go through. There's not like jargon, I don't know how you say it in English. There's like not specific words that and specific complex you will have a hard time understanding, etc. And I really trust me on this one. It's sci-fi, but anyone can read it. And what's so great about it, like I said, is the format, because it's a file, and it's actually a file with a lot of different types of documents inside it. And so I'm gonna show you. There's like emails. There's like extracts from interviews, classified documents. You have plans. You have Wikipedia pages. You have, what's that? Yeah, what's that? Oh no, that's an interview. You have lists of names. Those kinds of documents, like you have really very different types of documents. And the principle of it is that someone, you don't know who, just compile these files and send them to someone, you don't know who at first, and you just know this file is about something, a big event that happened, and the files is to understand exactly what happened. And so you just go into the book not knowing what it's really going to be about, and you just discover, reading the files, what it is actually about, and it's just amazing. So I won't tell you anything more about it, just that, yeah, sorry, scratch that. I have one thing to say about it. The one thing I was fearing is that the format is so great and so original. I was afraid you would lose like the character development, and that the plot wouldn't be, as interesting and captivating as it would be if it was like narrated in a traditional way. And it was not the case. Like, you really, really connect with the two main characters. You love them so much. The relationships are really powerful and touching. And the fact that you only have scripts and, messages and emails, etc., it just doesn't prevent you from loving the characters, and the plot is actually way more thrillery and mysterious, and like you're way more into it and so gripped by it because of the format. So not a problem. I actually realized that this video was way too long, so I decided to cut it in half. So you're gonna have this part, that's part 1, and I'm gonna post the part 2 like in a few days, I think. So don't hesitate to subscribe and like if you like the video. I would be really grateful. And if you have anything to say about the books I just talked about, if you've read them, if you hated them, loved them, I would like to know, especially for the series that are like less well known, like Deltora Quest and Alanna. Have you ever heard of them? I would be interested just to know what you think about those series. So thank you very much for listening to me, and see you around.